At my daughter's birthday party, she made a wish in German while blowing out the candles. I wish Felix could be my dad this year. My wife smiled and patted her head. Soon enough, your wish will come true. I stood there in shock, and the cake slipped right out of my hands. My wife looked at me, concerned. What's wrong? I shook my head quickly, smiling. Just slipped, I said. But inside I knew it was because I understood German, and it caught me off guard. Even my hold on the cake faltered. Shirley seemed to forget that I grew up in Germany and only came back for college. When she found out, she learned German to get closer to me. I was the one who taught our daughter German step by step. Right now, Shirley was wiping the floor clean, and then she cut a piece of cake to feed me. I took a step back instead of taking it. I'm not really hungry. My daughter stuffed her mouth with cake, mumbling, I'm still here. You guys have to tone down all the lovey-dovey stuff. She was 7, still with those cute chubby cheeks, looking just like Shirley. So pretty. Shirley wrapped her arm around mine in front of her, resting her head on my shoulder, and raised her eyebrows. Being good to my husband is just routine, sweetie. You better get used to it. My daughter put her cake down and ran to curl up in my embrace. No way, it's my birthday today, so Dad's all mine. She held me tight. I didn't react like usual with a head pat. She noticed something was off and looked up, pouting. Dad, why don't you hug me back? Are you and Mom picking on me? Shirley chuckled, but I just stared at my daughter. I was just thinking, maybe they found someone they like better out there. My daughter froze. Dad, you're talking nonsense. Shirley's smile faded, softly stroking my hand. Yeah, you're the one we love most. Why would you think otherwise? I pulled my hand back. Now they wanted to trick me. They seemed to forget I hate lies more than anything. I warned her when we got married. Any deception, I'd leave for good. She vowed to be faithful in front of everyone. I'd go back to Germany and never see her again if she cheated. Yet I didn't know how long she'd been unfaithful. Even my daughter sided with someone else. 5 years of teaching down the drain in an instant. I thought I might break down and yell. Surprisingly, I was calm, figuring out where I'd go next. I gently pushed my daughter away. I'm tired. You guys go ahead. My daughter was in disbelief. I didn't console her. Just let her cries fill the room. Shirley whispered comfort. There, Judy. Don't cry. Maybe Dad's just not feeling well. I'll check on him. Okay, sweetheart. My daughter sniffed and nodded as I was closing the bedroom door. Shirley slipped in. A notification popped up on her phone. Want to come over tonight? She didn't notice, but came close with worry. What's wrong, honey? I looked down and let out. I saw your message pop up. Right then, I grabbed the phone and unlocked it in front of her. Shirley looked a bit panicked, but tossed the phone aside to show loyalty. My main goal is making my husband happy. Who's anybody else? As she spoke, she leaned in close, eyes filled with desire. Honey, she nestled in close, whispering in my ear. I knew you couldn't resist me. With her head resting against my neck, the door suddenly burst with knocks. Dad, Mom, I don't feel well. Shirley snapped back to reality, quickly opening the door. Judy, what's wrong? My daughter, curled up hugging her belly, spoke in German. Mom, I pretended to have a stomach ache, so we could leave. We said you'd take me to Felix today. She didn't lower her voice, tears almost spilling. Her acting was impressive. It would have fooled me if I didn't understand. Shirley understood, looking anxiously. Don't worry, Mommy's taking you to the hospital. Carrying her in a princess lift, Shirley turned to me. You stay home, we'll be back soon. My daughter glanced at me, crying. Dad, I smoothed her cheek, softly saying, it's okay. Daddy's here waiting for you. Her eyes lit up before she nodded, walking out with Shirley. Through the window later, I saw my energetic daughter holding a gleeful Shirley's hand. No sign of any illness. I understood they wouldn't return that night. Calmly, I started handling my move back to Germany. Because of my previous visits, the visa office responded quickly. If I gathered everything needed, I'd be gone in 2 weeks. Once settled, I turned off the computer, smiling at my reflection. Just 2 more weeks till you're home. Stay happy. Next morning, still no sight of them. Just a message from Shirley. Hey honey, Judy's still under observation. We'll be back tomorrow. He came with a picture of them on a hospital bench. My daughter still had whipped cream on her face. She was squeaky clean before leaving. Couldn't even put up a solid performance. Without replying, I headed out to start my visa paperwork. When I was heading out, I lowered my eyes and got drawn to the watch on my wrist. It's from my latest favorite brand. This watch was only available in Germany for in-person purchases, and it was limited edition. When Shirley found out, she flew all the way to Germany, waited in line for 8 hours, and bought it for me. At that moment, I thought I was the happiest person in the world. Now I shook my head, took off the watch, and tossed it in the trash. When I finished dealing with my visa paperwork, I happened to run into my daughter and Shirley passing by. Honey, what are you doing here? I tucked away the papers in my hand.
Just handling some things.
I have to travel to Germany for work. Shirley's eyes had a flicker of panic, but she tried to keep it together. But your German isn't that good. I smiled, fibbing a little. That's why I need you to teach me. She let out a sigh of relief and then jogged over to hold my hand. Great, let's go home together. My daughter grabbed my other hand, holding a bag with a radiant smile. Yay, I know a little bit too, and want to teach Mom. They both laughed happily, each holding one of my hands. Their joy was real, but mine was just a facade. The chill in my heart spread endlessly. We were far from home, especially from the hospital near our house. The only reason they would be here was because this Felix person lived nearby. The fragrance from both sides was overpowering, and when I couldn't bear it any longer, I coughed a few times. Shirley quickly asked what was wrong. I took out a mask from my bag and put it on, responding coolly, "The perfume is making my nose uncomfortable. I have sinus issues." They never wear perfume at home to avoid triggering it. For a moment, both of them looked even more flustered. Shirley hurriedly explained, "Maybe it's the smell from Judy's neighbor at the hospital." My daughter let go of my hand and ran to Shirley's side. I don't want to bother Dad either. My daughter, still young, couldn't hide the contentment on her face. I couldn't understand why she seemed to dislike me so much, why she was so happy to be away from me whenever she got the chance. I didn't try to cheer her up as I usually would, just gave a non-committal reply. She paused, surprised. The glance shared by the mother and daughter in the corner of my eye was full of bewilderment. Back home, my daughter presented an Hermes tie clip to me, eyes twinkling. "Look, Dad." Mom and I picked it out for a long time. In the past, when Shirley saw that I wasn't happy, she'd find ways to cheer me up. This time, it was with a long-desired bag. They were both anxiously awaiting my reaction. I sighed, taking the tie clip with a smile. "I really like it." Shirley's face lit up, spinning around me. "I'm glad. So, what do you want for lunch?"
My daughter chimed in.
"I want sweet and sour ribs today." Shirley picked her up, moving close to me. "We should ask if Dad wants them too." I held the tie clip tighter, nodding with a grin. "I'll have whatever Judy likes."
Yay.
"Thank you, Dad." My daughter pulled Shirley towards the kitchen. "Let's make it, Mom." As I watched them, a fragment of the heaviness in my heart lifted. I settled onto the sofa, grabbing my laptop to start some work. Almost immediately, a friend request popped up on my phone, a guy's profile picture, and without thinking, I accepted it. Almost instantly, a message came through. "So, do you like the tie clip I picked?" Instantly, I knew it was Felix, the one they talked about trying to provoke me. In that moment, I regretted the small mercy I had felt earlier, the thought of just staying and trying to keep things okay. Some people just have more layers to their deceit. I didn't reply, but Felix didn't seem to mind. He sent over a picture of him and Shirley drinking from the same cup, a live photo. Through the reflection of the glass, I could see it was taken by my daughter, complete with sound. "Mom and Felix are perfect together." Felix messaged, "What do you think of our couple picture?" "There's plenty more." I put my phone face down on the table, fighting the urge to gag. Disgust overwhelmed me. I leaned against the table, dry heaving into the trash can. "Honey, what's wrong?"
Don't scare me like that.
Shirley rushed over. I couldn't throw up anything but struggled to stand. Must have been the oily food from this morning. My daughter handed me a cup of warm water. Here, Dad, have some water. I looked at the water, and that photo flashed in my mind again. I quickly pushed it away and reached some more into the trash. My daughter's dress was soaked, and she pouted before bursting into tears. I hate you, Dad. Why do you always need comforting, unlike Felix who spoils me? You're nothing like him, she cried louder and louder. After all, she's just a child, too overwhelmed to realize she shouldn't say such things. Shirley's face darkened. Judy, what are you saying? Who is Felix? I gently asked, holding my daughter's hand. She sobbed deeply, barely hearing me. I knelt down, looking closely at someone I've cared for, feeling unfamiliar now. When she was 10 months old, I realized she loved to draw. I spent a half-year's income to create a dedicated art room at home. She enjoyed bedtime stories, so no matter how tired I was, I came up with new ones every night, still doing so to this day. Her stomach was sensitive from an early age, so I spent huge amounts of time on her meals, crafting menus just for her. I always thought my parenting paid off, that she knew to cheer me up when I was down. So, do you think I'm just forcing you? Shirley interjected. No, she's just saying things. Felix is just a character she met in kindergarten during a play. Judy, tell Dad the truth. She insisted, but deeply upset, our daughter heard nothing. She broke away from my grasp, shouting, I meant it. I really hate you. Mom, didn't you promise to get me a new dad after my birthday? I don't want to wait anymore. Boo-hoo. Shirley quickly covered her daughter's mouth. Don't say such things, sweetheart. She then picked up her daughter and started carrying her to her room. All right, she might just be tired. I slowly got up and tugged at Shirley's sleeve. Well, if our daughter wants a new dad, let's grant her wish. Honey, don't say that. I can't handle losing you. She took the child to her room, telling me to wait. As Shirley rushed off, holding her daughter's mouth shut, I slumped down by the couch, feeling drained. The defiant attitude I'd adopted just vanished. I even considered that maybe this was a chance to make a clean break, to divorce Shirley and go back to Germany. But then I worried Shirley wouldn't let me go. At some point, Shirley returned, sitting beside me and taking my hand. Honey, don't be mad. You know Judy's only 5. She's probably just repeating something she heard and doesn't really mean it. Her grip tightened on my hand. So, you were just speaking in anger, right? Her eyes had this almost obsessive possessiveness, and it made my skin crawl. I knew if I openly said I wanted to leave, she wouldn't let me go. Even if she and our daughter seemed to prefer Felix, I forced a smile. Yeah, I was just upset. Shirley visibly relaxed. Over the next few days, Shirley stayed close, more attentive than ever. She hardly left my side. Our daughter didn't seem happy, but whatever Shirley told her must have made her pretend to smile at me. Normally, they went out all the time, but now Shirley stuck around, even working from home. Her phone often chimed, and I noticed Judy's eyes light up every time. Must be Felix's ringtone. Shirley would glance at the phone and hang up, reassuring me it was just a competitor being annoying, not to worry. But despite all this, I didn't find a good chance to pack my things and leave. I only had a week until my planned trip abroad. Since Shirley and I dated, I rarely returned to Germany. My folks moved there long ago and only visited during my wedding or New Year's. They're fluent in Chinese and never mentioned their life back in Germany. To our daughter, Grandma and Grandpa just lived too far away to visit often. I'd tried suggesting a visit to Germany with Shirley, but she always refused, claiming she was too busy with work. I stopped asking eventually. She never asked why I never went to see my parents either. Then I got a message from Felix. Attached was a visa. Doesn't matter if you won't let Shirley accompany me, he wrote. She's already agreed to go to Germany with me anyway. You can stay at home and see how your daughter and wife both prefer me. I shrugged it off, almost hoping they'd leave soon. Watch as I take them away from you. Another message taunted. Shirley picked up the call next, right in front of me. I heard Felix's voice through the line. Shirley was clearly flustered, whispering into her hand. I'll be there soon, said Shirley. Our daughter quickly stood up. Mom, are you going to the office? I want to come. Since she was 4, she'd often go with Shirley, supposedly for early learning. I suspected it was just a chance to see Felix. Shirley gave me a questioning look. Honey, I really need to go. I understand. Go ahead, I replied softly. Then I smiled at Judy. If you want to go with Mommy, you can. Her eyes lit up, and she quickly took Shirley's hand, ready to leave. Before leaving, Shirley promised to come back. I'll be home for sure, she said. Once they left in the car, Shirley sent a message. How are you feeling? This is what happens when you try to take my woman. I calmly replied, doesn't matter. She's yours. Then I shut off my screen, went to my study, and printed a divorce agreement. Over the years, I'd signed many papers for Shirley. Sometimes she couldn't even tell whose handwriting it was. I picked up a pen and signed my name with determination. I felt like I could finally breathe. Shirley hadn't given me a chance for days, always somewhere nearby. But now I was ready. That evening, Shirley kept her word and came home. I sensed a faint fragrance on her, like she'd just showered. She gave me a look that was both affectionate and longing, then threw her arms around me, burying her face in my shoulder. Honey, it's been so long, she murmured, brushing close to me. I resisted the urge to push her away. What, isn't Felix enough? I thought, but Shirley didn't sense my mood, persisting in her advances. Before things could go further, I spoke in a raspy tone. Shirley, how about we have a drink first? Suggesting it as a game. Her eyes twinkled with a mix of surprise and excitement. All right, she agreed. I had something prepared, a spiked drink, and I handed it to her. As she drank and her eyes started to glaze over, she eventually fell asleep. I let out a sigh of relief and picked up my phone, only to see a photo from Felix. It was a close-up of him and Shirley. Shirley's face was flushed, almost hidden. She's definitely more than that. I chuckled and sent him a picture of Shirley and me together. Seems like she found her scent too much and came back to me. I also sent a recording of Shirley confessing her feelings. You. Felix replied almost immediately and began to rant. I couldn't be bothered, so I turned off my phone and got ready to sleep. Annoying Felix was already a win for me. 3 days to go before heading to Germany. When Shirley got up, she forgot most things due to her hangover and leaned on my shoulder, mumbling about the night. Instinctively, I started to dry heave in front of her. I couldn't believe my aversion was so strong that I couldn't even handle the slightest intimacy. Shirley snapped awake and patted my back. Babe, what's wrong? Are you not feeling well? I played along and lied. My stomach feels off. Shirley's face filled with worry, and she quickly got dressed to take me to the hospital. As we left, we ran into our daughter, just waking up. She paused for a moment, then rushed over. Daddy, what's wrong? I stayed silent as Shirley answered for me. In the past, I would have been moved by how thoughtful and smart my daughter was. Now, all I could think was if she'd end up resenting me a bit more. As I frowned and sat in the car, she carefully rubbed my stomach. Shirley, in the driver's seat, ran 3 red lights to get me to the hospital. At the attending doctor's door, I spotted a familiar face. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw my daughter's eyes light up for a moment. I looked at the sign next to the door. Of course, it was Felix. No wonder my daughter had to go to the hospital on her birthday. Felix was a doctor here. The moment he opened the door and saw me, Felix's pupils widened, but Shirley casually helped me to a seat and asked, Doctor, can you check my husband's stomach? He thinks it's not a gastrointestinal issue. Felix seemed startled for a second. Only Shirley kept pushing, Doctor. What's with you? Honestly, if I didn't care about the drama, I'd applaud Shirley for her acting. She totally deserves an award. Felix took a deep breath, used his professionalism to examine me, then found an excuse to leave me alone in the office. Are you here to mess with me? There's nothing wrong with you.
He tossed the report at me.
I knew there was nothing wrong with me, but being at the hospital, I had to make a show of it. I scoffed and looked at Felix. You're a doctor. Can't you fudge some records for me? Felix looked at me incredulously and seemed a bit pissed. Why should I agree? Faking this could cost me my job. The deal is I'll divorce her. I didn't pay attention to his sarcasm and continued. A woman like her will cheat on you now, and someone else after. Better I set you both free. Felix only cared about the last part. Are you really gonna divorce her? I showed him a picture of the divorce papers. Of course, I don't want her anymore, but you keep quiet about how I tricked her. Felix gave me a peculiar look. Fine deal. Felix used his position to avoid stating my real condition clearly to Shirley. I left the divorce papers with Felix, instructing him to mail them to my home in a week. After all that, just a day until I go home. Shirley had returned to her usual self. Their trip to Germany with Felix was on. Shirley made an excuse about her own work trip, and our daughter pretended to want to go with Shirley. Great, all pretending to be on business trips. Me too. But when she saw me packing crucial things, she paused. Darling, are you sure you want to take all that? I kept my back to her, continuing to pack. I need it all. Shirley watched closely, trying to read something from me. I turned, grinning to calm her. I'll be back. Got you a gift, too. Her eyes lit up, and our daughter scampered over, hearing the word gift. I chuckled, patting her head. You get something, too. Yet, I felt a bit of regret at not being able to see their reaction to the truth. I bet it'll be epic. That night, as we lay down, Shirley hugged me, a tad uneasy. Babe, you're not hiding anything, right? For a moment, I thought she figured something out. But then she just mumbled miserably into my back. For some reason, I'm really scared. I let out a silent breath and turned to hug her. You're overthinking it, probably just not used to you and our daughter being apart from me for so long. Shirley murmured an uncertain hum. To reassure her, I patted her back until she fell asleep. Then I stopped and, by the faint light from outside, looked at the woman in front of me intently. From college to marriage, to our daughter turning 5, her features became even more beautiful. If it wasn't for this incident, I'd never know. The tenderness is fake, the coldness is real. I despise deceit the most, yet they love lying to me. The next morning, Shirley left earlier for the airport. From her point of view, I'd leave the next day. My daughter was quite excited, chatting away all morning. Every sentence was about the upcoming trip. I smiled in silence, watched them head for the airport, and vanish from my sight. I swiftly grabbed my luggage and headed straight to the airport. My phone kept buzzing with messages about Shirley. Sure enough, I tossed her contact number in at the airport and boarded my flight to Germany without a glance back. On the flip side, Shirley, after picking up Felix, noticed an exclamation mark next to the message she sent me. In the back seat, our daughter hugged Shirley tightly.
Great.
Now I can finally play with the dad I love. She then looked at Shirley. Mom, how much longer until I can get rid of my current dad? Shirley gripped the steering wheel tightly, her face gloomy. She couldn't bring herself to say no. Felix glanced at her, puzzled. What's up, Shirley? Shirley shook off the images in her head, forcing a smile. Nothing. Let's get going. As for me, I had reached out to my parents in Germany before I even got off the plane. My son, my precious son, you finally decided to come back to Germany to see us. My mom's voice laced with reproach, though her eyes were misty. Dad let out a scoff. You still remember home? Weren't you planning to live here? Taking both of their hands, I gently told them I'm divorced. What? Mom was too shocked to speak, but Dad stayed calm and sighed. I knew it. You were bound to fall apart. Suddenly, I remembered that my mom was the only one who blessed my marriage. To my dad, this marriage was doomed. We fought about it. I convinced him to move back to China. He was so mad. He threw a vase at me. You fool. Do you ever listen to your dad? I've been around long enough to see what kind of person she is, but you were insistent on being with her. I dodged the vase, ignoring Dad's lectures, stubbornly taking Shirley back home. Now, though, he was right. I hung my head low this time, ready to listen to his advice. Then I firmly said, I've made up my mind. Not remarrying. I want to make it on my own. Mom immediately shot me a look of approval. That's the spirit. But first, I took a break with my parents exploring Germany. The weather was nice today, and I sat daydreaming in the square. Suddenly, I heard an incredulous voice. I thought Shirley and I crossed paths no more. Who knew Germany was so small that I'd run into her in just 2 days? Coincidentally, neither of us looked like we were here to work. Confidently, I greeted her in German. Hello. Shirley froze instantly. You can speak it? Before I could reply, my mom chimed in. You crazy kid, I can speak it too. I burst into laughter, seeing Shirley's face paling more by the second. I guess she remembered I grew up in Germany. What do you know? I casually repeated something from when we celebrated my birthday. Shirley, stunned, couldn't hold back. I sneered, showing her chat history. These were they all jokes. Shirley took my phone, her face ashen, almost dropping it. She lowered her head, whispering, I'm sorry. I only found it amusing. Really, you want my forgiveness? Shirley tried to grab my hand. To explain. Before she could, my dad rushed up and kicked her to the ground. Get away from my son, you scumbag. Dad, staying fit for years, kicked her down for a good while. Shirley struggled to stand, coughing hard, tears streaming down.
Please just hear me out.
It was an accident between Felix and me. Uninterested, I walked over and slapped her. You seem to forget, I hate liars the most, yet you all loved acting in front of me. I asked so many times, but you denied it, treating me like a fool. Now, you want me to listen, get lost. I immediately stood, leaving with my parents, right before our cab Shirley caught up again. Can I at least have a way to contact you? What about our daughter? Have you given up on her too? She held onto the cab window, but Dad pulled her away, coldly warning her. Approach my son again, and you're going home crippled. Inside, I quietly stared ahead. I once said I'd grant her a gift, letting our daughter wish for a different dad. Perfect, you taught her that, now back at you. Before heading back, Felix had informed me about the issues with our daughter's thinking. Apparently, Shirley kept telling her behind my back that I needed pampering, couldn't handle heavy lifting, or I'd be upset, urging her to be kinder to me. Eventually, our daughter barely showed me any emotion, even started hating me, forgot my sacrifices. No wonder the daughter I raised myself despised me so. Thinking of that made my heart cooler, so I told the driver, let's get moving. Seeing no hope in fixing things, Shirley ran, trying to keep up. I watched her trip, rolling over a few times. Soon, she vanished from view. This time, I knew there'd be no more chances to meet Shirley again. Back in China, when Shirley finally learned of the divorce, it happened at the doorway of our home. Daughter cheered upon seeing the package I'd prepared. Hooray! I can really swap dads. Only Shirley, face darkened, wanted to rip the papers apart. Why, how did the divorce go through? And you, why provoke him? Felix was startled at first, but quickly defended himself. I just told her the truth. What's wrong? You wanted the divorce, didn't you? Shirley tossed his luggage out in anger. Get out. Seeing this, our daughter was dumbfounded, pleading with Shirley on behalf of Felix. Why send him away? Isn't this what we wanted? Faced with reality, Shirley regretted her decisions. She looked coldly at our daughter. Then you can leave with him. Our daughter was completely stunned. Why, Mom? Even Felix stood there with tears in his eyes. You came to me first, saying you're tired of your family and wanted to marry me. Shut up. Shirley didn't want to hear any more and closed her eyes. I regret it. The only person I love is my husband. As for you, just get lost. Felix couldn't hold back his tears. Their daughter anxiously tried to comfort him, but when he realized there was no turning back, he pushed her away. Get out of here. The daughter fell to the ground. Felix. Dad, don't call me Dad. I only married your mom to please her. Do you really think I wanted to entertain you? Shirley yelled, grabbed her suitcase, and walked away. The daughter's eyes filled with tears as she got up and asked, feeling wronged, what about my dad? Do I not have a dad anymore? Shirley stood still, hesitating to open the door because she had lost her husband too. Later, she couldn't pick herself up, and the company's shares plummeted until it went bankrupt. Without my care, my daughter couldn't eat well or sleep. In a moment of confusion, Shirley almost strangled her daughter. When she realized it, The daughter was nearly unconscious in her hands. Now, without a career and knee-deep in debt, she could only kneel by her daughter's bedside, crying silently.
I'm sorry.
If your dad were here, things would be different. Elsewhere, I yawned suddenly, and my mom heard it and found a jacket for me to wear. Grinning, I asked Mom, "What's for dinner tonight?" She laughed and tapped my forehead. "Look at you, always interested in food when you get home. What about that ambition we talked about?" I chuckled and linked my arm with hers. No rush, no rush.